We didn't know their names. I look at that wall to see their names. The reflection is so clear. We know their faces. We rescued their bodies. We didn't know their names. We evac'd them, Dustoff. We didn't know their names. Their bodies were torn. Their families heard their names after we did our job. Too much noise to hear their names on our chopper. We knew their faces, surely not as their families did. They were much older today. Their families knew them. We only saw them. They had lived in the boonies. No comfort there. No comfort on our ship. The Red Cross brought no real comfort to them. Yes, we brought relief and aid, but pain came with it too, to them and to us. I hope their pain is gone now, but I know it is not until we are. We see their faces lying on our ship, which is covered with their blood, and those from the prior days. 50 years have passed, and yet not a day we see the reflection of each face in the names. The wall, they begin to come together now. Some day that God knows of, we will put the faces with the names. Then we will rest. The Dustoff Medivac helicopters were some of the most dangerous places to be during the war. These were first put in service in 1962 on a much smaller scale, with the 57th Medical Detachment, or Air Ambulance, being put into Vietnam, headed by Captain John Temporelli. Temporelli saved not only advising Americans, but also, against his orders, saved many ARVN troops. This 57th Detachment was the first time that helicopters were used to evacuate the injured in Vietnam, and over the course of the years until the end of the war, these air ambulance helicopters would become more organized and more common in Vietnam. The call sign Dustoff was coined because of the large amounts of dust and grass shot up by the ships when picking up patients. The 57th started with 5 UH-1 Huey helicopters for the whole of Vietnam, but by 1969 that number had risen drastically along with the casualty rate. In 1969, my grandfather, Paul Harple, went into Vietnam hoping to become a pilot. Under the impression that being a Dustoff crew chief was a step to get him there, he joined the 45th Dustoff. The Dustoff flew 24 hours a day in any weather conditions, and they evacuated over 900,000 troops over the course of the war. Harple was also known as Tadpole because he lost 5 tail booms over his time in Vietnam, which was only about a year. The Dustoff crews were only armed with an M16 and maybe a handgun, as well as flares, and the crews consisted of 2 pilots, 1 medic, and 1 crew chief. Being the crew chief, Harple was in charge of maintaining the ship, and he always said that, on the ground, the medic was the assistant to me, but in the air, I was the assistant to the medic. The crew chief, although mostly in charge of the maintenance and machinery on the ship, was also a major part in saving patients' lives on board. The Dustoff men were not only men of great bravery, but they were also men of great kindness. When my grandfather served, they took in orphans on Christmas Day and gave them toy helicopters and brought them around the facilities at their base. Nuns in South Vietnam took care of these orphans normally, as many of them had parents that were killed during the war in villages by both sides, and the troops at the base were very fond of the kids, and vice versa. In total, only around 3,000 men volunteered to fly with the Dustoff during the war, and these men could opt out at any time. Their outstanding bravery saved so many lives during the war, and their heroic efforts aren't recognized as much as they should be in modern history. Their willingness to put their lives on the line so others may live is a testament to the courage that these men showed during their time in Vietnam.